Welcome back to Cinema Recaps. Today, I will introduce the 2011 drama film, The Help. Warning, spoilers ahead, proceed with caution. Mississippi, 1963, Abilene Clark tells her story to a writer. She grew up on a plantation and knew she would become a maid because her mother and grandmother were also maids. She has taken care of 17 white children in her life, while her own child was cared for by someone else. Currently, she is working for the Leafold family. The wife, upper-class Elizabeth, doesn't care much about her daughter May, so Abilene is the primary caregiver, earning only 95 cents an hour. This story begins when Skeeter Phelan returns home after graduating from college. She tries to apply for a job at a major publisher in New York, but is told she needs experience first. Therefore, she applies for a job at the local newspaper and gets the position of answering household cleaning questions in a column for housewives, with a salary of $8 a week. Meanwhile, Abilene talks about her best friend, Minnie Jackson, who works for the Holbrook family. The lady of the house, Hilly, is the leader of the High Society Women's Group and is also the president of the Junior League. Recently, Hilly has taken her sick mother, Mrs. Walters, to live with her and fired the previous maid to make room for Minnie, as Minnie is the best cook in town, and Hilly loves her pies. When Abilene lost her son 4 years ago, Minnie helped her get through it. Today, Hilly is hosting a bridge club meeting, so Minnie and Abilene get a chance to chat in the kitchen while working. Minnie tells Abilene about how Hilly marked the toilet paper to ensure that Minnie wouldn't use their bathroom. So Minnie starts bringing her own toilet paper. Skeeter also attends this gathering and is warmly greeted by her old friends. But the atmosphere turns awkward when Skeeter mentions she has a job. She's always been seen as strange for not being married. The mood becomes uncomfortable again when Skeeter asks Elizabeth if she can speak with Abilene afterward for help with answering cleaning questions. This leads her to admit that she cannot ask her own maid because she quit, which is seen as a bit unusual. At that moment, the phone rings, and Abilene answers. It's Celia Foote, a housewife ostracized by high society for marrying Johnny, Hilly's ex-husband. Elizabeth refuses to take the call, so Celia asks Abilene to help find a maid because she needs help, but Abilene cannot assist. After the women mock Celia for a while, the topic shifts to the bathroom issue. Hilly refuses to use Elizabeth's guest bathroom because the maid uses it and advises Elizabeth to build a separate bathroom for the maid. Hilly even believes that black people carry different diseases and has drafted the Home Health Sanitation Initiative, suggesting that every household should have a separate bathroom for black maids. When the meeting ends, Skeeter asks Abilene to help with the letters, and the maid agrees. Skeeter apologizes to Abilene for having to hear the bathroom discussions. Then she brings up her former maid, Constantine. Abilene was once friends with her, but hasn't seen her in a long time. She's surprised to hear Skeeter say that Constantine quit because that's not true. Before Skeeter can ask more, Elizabeth interrupts, giving her the materials on Hilly's initiative to include in the League's newsletter. Later, Skeeter goes home to talk to her mother. Charlotte refuses to answer any questions about Constantine and becomes annoyed that Skeeter has a job, worried that at this rate, she'll never get married. During family dinner, Skeeter asks about Constantine again. Her father lies, but Skeeter pushes for the truth and finds out that Constantine was fired after 29 years of service. The two argue, and when Charlotte won't acknowledge that Constantine is the one who really raised her, Skeeter leaves the house, recalling how Constantine always comforted her during her teenage sadness. This gives Skeeter an idea. She wants to write a book that tells the true story of the maids' lives, so people can see a different perspective. The next day, Skeeter meets with Abilene to ask for help answering the column letters. Meanwhile, a contractor starts planning the construction of an extra bathroom. When it's safe, Skeeter asks Abilene to share her story for the book, but Abilene refuses. Their conversation is interrupted when Elizabeth returns, arguing with her husband, who is unhappy about the new bathroom, and storms out angrily. When little May begins to cry, Abilene comforts her. Elizabeth tells Skeeter she can no longer speak with Abilene about the letters. That night, a tornado hits the town. Minnie is terrified of using the outside toilet, but Hilly doesn't allow her to use the indoor one. Minnie secretly uses her employer's toilet. Unfortunately, Hilly finds out and fires her. A few days later, Abilene's new bathroom is completed, so she too must use the outdoor toilet. But there's some comfort when little May calls her real mama. Skeeter stops by Abilene's neighborhood to ask for help again, causing Abilene to miss her bus. Abilene refuses again, mentioning her cousin who was burned just for being near a polling station, so she doesn't want to risk her life. Nonetheless, Skeeter leaves her phone number. but Abilene refuses her offer of a ride. Skeeter later researches the laws for black people and discovers some appalling rules. For example, publishing ideas about equality can lead to imprisonment. Books cannot be exchanged between whites and blacks, and black schools and barbershops are prohibited from serving white women. That night, Abilene receives a call from Minnie saying she did something terrible. Hilly spread a rumor that Minnie was a thief, so Minnie retaliated with a special pie. She doesn't detail what's horrible about it, but she cries, knowing she'll never get work again. Their conversation is cut short when Minnie's husband returns and starts beating her because she lost her job. This makes Abilene reconsider the book, and after hearing a sermon about how God wants his people to be courageous, she calls Skeeter to tell her story. Skeeter parks her car far away so the neighbors won't see it, and tells Abilene that she doesn't care if the story portrays whites negatively. She wants to publish the truth. The story goes back to the beginning. Meanwhile, Hilly's new maid asks to borrow $75 to send her child to school, even offering to work some days for free to pay it back. But Hilly refuses, saying she's done her favor as God helps those who help themselves. A few days later, Minnie's husband forces her daughter to drop out of school to work as a maid to support the family. Minnie is out of work for several days, but Abilene has an idea. There's one person who surely hasn't heard Hilly's rumors, Celia. Minnie meets Celia, who warmly welcomes her, as Celia is terrible at housework and desperately needs help, especially since she's pregnant. Celia agrees to hire Minnie on the condition that she keeps her employment secret from Johnny, which Minnie accepts. At the next Junior League meeting, Hilly announces that her sanitation initiative has been sent to the governor and reminds Skeeter to include it in the newsletter. Skeeter deliberately avoids publishing it and lies about completing it soon. Interviews with Abilene continue, now addressing how Elizabeth is a poor mother. Minute, overhearing them, scolds Skeeter for this risky idea, but after a few seconds, she changes her mind and begins sharing all sorts of stories with Skeeter, promising to persuade other maids to join in. The following Saturday, Hilly introduces Skeeter to Stuart, and they go on a double date. Unfortunately, Stuart's behavior is poor, angering Skeeter, who leaves the restaurant before even ordering. Meanwhile, Minnie and Celia grow closer, with Celia treating her with respect and even inviting her to lunch. Sometime later, Skeeter receives news from her editor, saying the stories are good, but that they need at least a dozen maids for publication. Abilene and Minnie have asked everyone they know, but no one is willing to participate due to fear. Minnie then suggests using a few of her own stories and attributing them to other maids to protect identities since they're already using fake names. Skeeter declines because she wants the book to be authentic, so to encourage her, Abilene shares the tragic story of her son. While carrying heavy lumber, he fell and was hit by a truck. His supervisor dumped his body onto a truck and took him to the colored hospital, honking the horn before leaving. The hospital couldn't help him, so Abilene brought him home, where he died on the couch at the age of 24. Writing the book is her way of finding peace. The next day, Stuart apologizes to Skeeter for his behavior, explaining that he was still upset over a recent breakup and that Hilly pressured him to go on the date, which is why he was drunk. Skeeter is blunt about her thoughts, which Stuart appreciates as he rarely encounters such straightforwardness. They agree to go on another date, and this time, it goes well. Stuart finds Skeeter intelligent and even admits to reading her column, and they start dating for real. As Skeeter continues working on the newsletter, she decides to have some fun and changes a few words in an article. When it's published, Hilly's coat drive is mistakenly labeled as a commode drive, causing Hilly to wake up and find her yard full of old toilets. Civil rights activist Medgar Wiley Evers is fighting for equality and becomes a prominent subject on TV, but Charlotte refuses to let anyone in the house watch his speech. That night, Abilene and other black passengers are told to leave the bus due to unrest in the streets. Evers has been murdered in front of his children. Abilene seeks refuge at Minnie's home for the night, and though both of them grow increasingly fearful for the book, they decide to be more cautious and continue writing. The next day, Minnie discovers Celia bleeding in the bathroom after a miscarriage. Minnie helps Celia to bed and cares for her, and Celia shares her fears. Johnny married her because she was once pregnant, but their first child died after a month. Since then, she has lost 3 more, including this one, but she has never told Johnny. Celia fears her husband will leave her. Minnie assures her that Johnny will get over it. Celia buries the baby in the garden under a plant, as she did with the others. Meanwhile, Hilly's maid is arrested in front of the other maids. She found a ring while cleaning under the couch, and when she tried to sell it at a pawn shop, The clerk became suspicious and called the police. When Skeeter visits Abilene, she's surprised to find dozens of maids now willing to share their stories because this morning's arrest was the final straw. There are all kinds of stories about the mistreatment they've endured, and the saddest part is hearing that the children they raised grew up to be as cruel as their parents. The next day, the socialites hold another bridge club party, and Celia tries to join them, even bringing a pie with her. However, all the women hide and ignore her, so Celia leaves in tears. When she returns home, Minnie scolds her for trying to befriend such horrible people, explaining that they hate her because she married Johnny. Celia misunderstands, thinking they believe Johnny cheated on Hilly, when in reality, their relationship began after things with Hilly had ended. Celia decides to clear things up at the charity benefit event. Minnie advises against it, but Celia diverts the conversation by tending to Minnie's wound, knowing that it wasn't caused by a fall, but by her husband. Celia tells Minnie she should hit her husband with a skillet and leave him, but Minnie says she must think of her children. A few days later, President Kennedy is assassinated, which heightens Abilene's fear of being discovered, so Minnie shares her insurance policy. It turns out the special pie she made for Hilly contained her own excrement, and Mrs. Walters witnessed her daughter eat 2 pieces, laughing about it. This caused Hilly to send her mother to a nursing home. Abilene and Skeeter think including this story in the book is risky as it might reveal Minnie's identity, but Minnie disagrees. Hilly would never want anyone to know she ate excrement, so this story is the perfect protection. At the charity event, Johnny and Celia's arrival makes the socialites uncomfortable. During the auction, Minnie's chocolate pie is assigned to Hilly, though she hadn't put her name down. A drunken Celia approaches Hilly and tries to explain that Johnny never cheated on her, accidentally tearing her dress sleeve. As she causes a scene, Johnny takes his wife home, but Celia vomits on the floor before they leave. After the event, Mrs. Walters takes the pie home, revealing she had bid on it under Hilly's name to annoy her for putting her in a nursing home. The next day, Celia realizes she doesn't fit into this high society life and considers leaving Johnny. However, Minnie convinces her to stay, pointing out that if she leaves, Hilly's manipulation will win. Meanwhile, Skeeter is nearly done with the book, only needing Constantine's story. She pressures her mother into confessing the truth. A few months ago, Charlotte hosted a Daughters of America luncheon after becoming state regent. Their gathering was interrupted by the early arrival of Constantine's daughter, Rachel, whom they hadn't expected until the following week. Usually, Rachel entered through the main door, but Charlotte insisted she wait in the kitchen. Rachel refused to enter through the service door and went inside anyway, wanting to see her mother. Under pressure from the other socialites, who reminded her of proper behavior, Charlotte sent them both away. The next day, she went to Constantine's house to bring her back, but Constantine had already left with Rachel. Charlotte sent her son to Chicago, where Rachel lived, to see if they could speak, but it was too late. Constantine had passed away. Charlotte tries to apologize, but Skeeter leaves in tears. After visiting Constantine's empty house to write the final story, Skeeter sends the book to the editor, who gives her a rather small advance, but she still shares it with the maids. The book is published anonymously and becomes a success. Mrs. Walters even reads it at the nursing home. When she recognizes the pie story, she calls Hilly to tell her to read it. Unfortunately, Skeeter doesn't enjoy her success for long, as Stuart breaks up with her after she admits to writing the book, calling her selfish. When Hilly reads the book, she panics and tries to quash the rumors her friends are spreading about the stories potentially being from their town. However, she loses her composure upon receiving a charity check from Celia made out to Slice Hilly. Furious, Hilly confronts Skeeter, who has just received a job offer from a publishing company. Hilly threatens legal action, but Skeeter reminds her that doing so would mean admitting she ate the special pie. At that moment, Charlotte steps in to defend her daughter and sends Hilly away. Afterward, Charlotte tells Skeeter she's proud of her, congratulates her on the new job, and thanks her for bringing courage to the family. Meanwhile, Minnie is nervous when Johnny approaches, but he only wants to thank her for supporting Celia. He had known all along about Celia's maid, and since Minnie's arrival, Celia's health has improved immensely. Johnny drives Minnie home, where Celia is waiting with a homemade meal. Johnny offers Minnie a permanent position in their household, and Minnie accepts, gaining the strength to finally leave her abusive husband. At their next church service, Abilene and Minnie are greeted with applause for their bravery. The community has signed the book as a gift since Abilene's name isn't on the cover. After the service, they give the book to Skeeter so she can see what she's accomplished. Skeeter admits that she's unsure about moving to New York because she doesn't want to leave Abilene and Minnie in this situation. However, the maids encourage her to go and pursue a better life. The next day, as Abilene returns from the store, but she finds Hilly accusing her of stealing her silverware. Though it's clearly false, Elizabeth still fires Abilene. When Hilly threatens jail, Abilene calls her ungodly, forcing Hilly to leave in tears. Little May tries to stop Abilene from leaving, but it doesn't change Elizabeth's decision, and Abilene walks away, ignoring May's cries. May is the last child Abilene cared for, but she has no regrets about what she's done for her community. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.